You're still doing it. You're stomping.
I was just shaking my leg.
I know, stop it.
I have anxiety.
All right, number 19. So this is the start of the back page. It says find the values for which this must be a parallelogram. So the first thing when you look at this problem should be, what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with sides or are we dealing with angles? Angles, okay? So if we're dealing with angles, then you should think, okay, what do I know about angles? In a parallelogram, what do I know about angles? Which ones are equal?
Opposites.
Opposites are equal, okay? So that would mean these are equal, and that would mean these are equal.
And those equal 180.
Yes.
Those
Right.
equal 180.
So those are not ideal. The equal ones are not ideal because you have two different variables, right? But the consecutive ones, remember consecutive is the ones that are next to each other, have to equal 180, and those ones have the same variable. So look at your variables, see what they have, and use the ones that make sense. So in this one, the ones next to each other are the ones that make the most sense. So you would say 4x plus 2x plus 6 equals 180. How do you simplify that?
Add the sixes.
Oh, there's a
Well, 4x plus 2x, right? So 6x plus 6.
Would x equal 29?
I don't know, I haven't gotten that far yet.
I got it.
So you get 6x equals 174, and then divide by 6, and you get x equals 2 times 54. Yes, 29. Okay, seriously, you guys, listen. All right, so x is 29. How do you solve max? Zip it. How do you solve for y?
So y equals mx plus b.
That's a different problem. You're right.
Well,
Y
what
does
the heck?
equal mx plus b.
So you're gonna make you're gonna ask the math teacher how to do
Okay,
this problem.
go sit in the hallway. I'm done with you. Go sit in the hall. Somebody else want to try the y's? How do you solve for y?
Plug it back in.
You could plug it back in. Where would you? So if you plugged it back in, where would you plug it in?
Where would I plug it in?
So if you know x is 29, you could plug 29 in here, and then set these two equal, right?
Yes.
Or you could set these two equal to 180. Which would you rather?
To 180, the top one, the 3y
You would-
minus 20, or
You would rather do the 180?
Bless you.
would that be easier? Do you know?
It's not about, I mean, they're both pretty equally, like, easy, difficult. I think they're about the same process. It's more what makes more sense to you. Would you prefer to set two things equal to each other, or would you prefer to add two things together and set it equal to 180? Or doesn't it really matter? Like, they're both about the same. Okay, so let's just set these equal. Since we already set one equal to 180, we'll just do it this way. So 4y plus 4 equals 4 times your x is 29. So plug that in. 4 times 29. Oh, my kid was playing with my calculator. Hold on. So 4 times 29 is 116. 4y plus 4 equals 116. So you're going to take away that 4 and then divide. 112 divided by 4. So your y value should be 28. Does that make sense? So you can either set them equal or you can add them together and set them equal to 180. What are you doing?
What's the lesson?
Well, can you handle that right now?
Yeah.
Then come sit down and do it with us. But if I hear any more disrespect out of your mouth, you will go see Pfeiffer. I'm tired of the sass that I'm getting from you. Okay, that's 19. Number 20. This is still a parallelogram, but you got to think, what do we know about parallelograms? Are you dealing with sides or angles right now?
Size.
Okay, I said that poorly. Diagonals are lengths, right? Lengths or angles. We're dealing with the lengths of pieces of our problem. What do you know about the diagonals of a parallelogram?
They equal 180.
Not the equal 180.
360.
Those are all angles, right? If you're 90, 180, 360, that's all angle measures. What are you? The diagonals aren't, but the pieces of the diagonals are, right? So they bisect each other. Remember, this will equal this, and this will equal this. Okay, so if diagonals bisect each other, then what are we setting equal?
4x minus 2 equals 3y.
Yes. So if we say 4x minus 2 equals 3y minus 1, that's one of them. The other one you can set equal is 3y minus 3 equals 3x. That one is easier to work with just because, see all the 3's? You can just divide by 3 everywhere, and then you'll know what x equals. So if we divide by 3, then we get x equals...
Wait, you can do that? You can just...
If you do everything, like you are allowed to divide everything by the same number. If you only divide 1 or 2 pieces, then no. But if it's everything gets divided, then you can do it. Yeah, because this is 1, and this is 1, right? So it's y minus 1 equals 1x.
We plug x in.
And now, well, you plug the value of x in, right? X is y minus 1, so we're going to take this and we're going to put it here. So this is going to be 4 times y minus 1. It's that substitution idea again. Minus 2 equals 3y minus 1. I think on the test, I gave you your variables the same so that you don't have to do the substitution way. But it's the same concept, right? It's the pieces of the diagonal are equal and the other pieces of the diagonal are equal. Okay, so then from here, how do you solve this?
Add 2 to both sides.
Okay, you can. I'm going to distribute first because then you can simplify that side. So 4y minus 4 minus 2 equals 3y minus 1. Then you can just combine this. So negative 4 minus 2. So you get 4y minus 6 equals 3y minus 1. And now you can just move your y and your 6. So take away 3y. You get y on the left side. Add 6 to both sides. And you get 5. So that means y is 5.
And x is 4.
How'd you get that?
I subtracted 1.
So if you plug that back in here, 5 minus 1 is the value of x. So x is 4. Okay. You can't? You just did. Okay, next one.
Wait.
And like I said, I'm not going to make you swap variables as intensely on the test. Okay, look at number 21 and look at its marking. So it says find the measures of the numbered angles in each special parallelogram. So it is a parallelogram, but it's a more specific type of parallelogram. What is it that has all sides congruent? What type of parallelogram has 4 congruent sides?
Square. A rectangle.
This one, most specifically, is a rhombus because they didn't tell us if the other angles are 90, right? So we know it's a rhombus, okay? Remind me what we know about rhombuses.
3 equals 90.
3 is 90, right. Remember the perpendicular diagonals.
The opposite sides congruent.
Opposite sides are congruent, but that doesn't help us with when we're dealing with angle measures. So if the diagonals are perpendicular, then every one of these is 90, right? So angle 3 is 90 degrees, okay? You should know right now number 1 or number 2. Which
2
one?
Is 32.
2 is 32.
One is 58.
And 1 is 58. So these are alternate interiors, right? Angle 2 is the same as that 32 because of AIA.
Okay.
So now if this is 32, look at this triangle.
90 plus 32 minus
That was
1.
really necessary.
90 plus 32 plus the measure of angle 1 should be 180. So take away, this is what, 122? and you get 58 degrees. So angle 1 is 58. Okay, so when it's a rhombus, you always start with the diagonals. Diagonals are perpendicular. Okay. Okay, tell me what number 2 is.
Oh my god.
56.
It's one-
Well, tell me the name of the figure.
a
Rectangle.
rectangle.
It's a rectangle. If you have a parallelogram with a right angle, we don't know anything about the sides right now. We know they're parallel, but if one angle is 90, then all 4 of these angles will be 90. Okay, so we know we have a rectangle.
Wait, so is 2 and 3 90?
2 and 3
Or-
added together
Oh,
are
so
90.
So 2 and 3 are 45.
Okay, but it's not bisecting the angle. If it's a square or a rhombus, it bisects the angle. Rectangles don't have to bisect the angle. You can find one right now.
56.
Well, this one's 56,
1 equals 56.
and this is a straight line. What do you know about a straight line?
Which equals
180.
180. So these two together, angle 1 plus the 56 should equal 180. So take away the 56 and you get 124. Okay, so angle 1 is 124. Okay, so now here's where you have to do a little like deeper thought. If this is a parallelogram, the diagonals bisect each other. If it's a rectangle, the diagonals are what? Congruent. So if diagonals bisect each other and they're congruent,
Is 211?
that means all of these are the same. I don't think so.
I was just guess.
Okay, well, look at this.
Is it 42?
What type of triangle is that blue one?
Isosceles.
Isosceles. What do you know about isosceles triangles?
2 sides are the same.
2 sides are the same. Their base angles are
The same.
congruent, right? So if I have a triangle,
Oh, so 124 minus 180 divided by 2.
right, take away the 124. So this is 56. And then you're going to cut that 56 in half to get angle 2
What?
and this angle over here, right? Those would be the same. Like this. Like if you treat it as an isosceles triangle, right? These angles are the same, where this is 124.
So 2.
So call this x and x, right? X plus 124 would have to equal 180.
So 2 is 28.
Does that make sense?
And then would 3 be 28 as well?
Okay, so 2 is 28, and this whole angle here is 90.
No, it's not.
So what do you do?
It's
You
subtract
subtract
28
90.
from 90.
Right, 90 minus 28 is 62.
Yes.
Okay, so the measure of angle 3
Oh, that's an annoying thing.
is 62 degrees.
Shut up, Luke. I was celebrating my Go see
It's so funny.
Okay, questions on that?
No, I
Angle
know.
2 is 28.
2 is 28.
Okay. I'm proud of myself.
Okay,
Can we say
I feel distinguished. I want to say that.
you know, self-control's hard.
it is
Huh.
hard?
It's good practice, though.
So,
Was that the last one on that side for you? Yeah, 23. Okay, 23. I want to know, is this always true? Is it sometimes true?
No.
Or is it never true?
never.
A rhombus is a square.
No.
Never.
A square has both things.
Never
Rhombus
true.
only has one.
It's never true. 2 different things.
Wait, so.
Sometimes.
Oh.
It is sometimes
that's
true.
not- You hit it wrong. You
Yes,
hit it wrong.
look.
You hit it. You
Listen.
follower.
That is a rhombus that is not a square, right? So it is possible to have a rhombus that is not a square. But this is a rhombus that is also
I don't like change.
a square, right? So a rhombus is a square would be
Oh.
sometimes true
That makes sense. That makes sense.
because this one works.
So you're
Okay.
telling me that that shape is a rhombus, square, and rectangle. Pick your pronouns, bro.
No, it's not a pronoun. It's just defining a term. 25. Okay, so a rhombus is a rectangle. Is that always, sometimes, or never true?
Because that's also a rectangle.
Always.
Right, this is your sometimes situation, right? It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Well, that's not true. This is the doesn't have to be. So a rhombus is a rectangle, can be true when it's a square, but doesn't have to be true when it's just a regular old rhombus like that. Okay. The diagonals of a parallelogram are congruent.
Yes.
True.
When?
Always. Yeah, sometimes.
When? What times?
A diag.
Never true.
Never.
Are there any diagonals? So here, we've talked about rectangles.
Crap.
We've talked about rhombuses,
That's a bad word.
right?
Heathen.
Why are we calling people heathens today?
I don't even know what heathen is. It's like, I only know it from the believer.
Okay, so
What that Suicide Squad song?
diagonals. Stick with me. You've been doing very well. The diagonals here in a rectangle, are they congruent? Yes. So this is one instance where the diagonals of a parallelogram are congruent.
So
Are
sometimes-
these two congruent? This and that?
Charming, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's
What?
yes.
No.
No, these aren't congruent, right?
That'll be a sometimes.
This one is shorter than this one. So this is a sometimes. They can be if it's a rectangle, but they don't have to be.
Is there going to be
Okay.
any exact answers here?
Hold on.
I gotta get this one.
I cut off part of the picture here.
I don't like change.
Okay, this one says, can you conclude this is a rhombus, rectangle, or square?
It's a rhombus.
That's a rectangle.
It's neither one. We don't have enough information.
It's nothing. It's literally
This
none
is
of it.
not enough info. If they gave us this, right, if they told us that both pieces were equal on both sides of that diagonal, those markings would be a rhombus.
On a test,
I was
read any
literally
AI
halfway
and
right,
it would count it
basically.
as enough.
Oh, what do we have?
Yeah.
Literally halfway.
Okay, this says for what value of x is the figure a parallelogram, and then justify. So they're saying knowing the measure of this angle and the measure of that angle in terms of x, what would you have to do with that for it to be a rhombus? Set them equal. They would have to be congruent, right? A rhombus looks like this. So if you say 5x minus 30
But they're not equal.
equals 3x plus 6, then this would be a rhombus. Okay? So solve that. See what you get.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Equals.
Holy.
Time out.
Jeez Louise.
Time out.
What do you get?
18. X equals
I said
18.
first 40.
So if x is 18 on this problem, then that figure is a rhombus. Okay?
Minus 3 plus 30
Divide by 2, divide by 2.
minus 3x.
Wait, so we don't have to plug it in then? Like, once we find X, we're good.
It just says what would the value of x be to make that a rhombus.
X.
Okay, so that's rhombus. What about a trapezoid? This is a
the
trapezoid.
Base angles are equal, so 3 is 45.
Right.
And then.
Knock knock.
45 minus 180.
Yes.
45.
Okay, so these two are gonna add up to 180, right? And 1 and 2 are gonna be the same because base angles are congruent. So angle 3
135.
is 45. Angle 2 and angle 1, which are going to be the same, are 180 minus 45, which would be 135.
Oh boy.
So in an isosceles trapezoid, you only get 2 angle measures. Okay, the 2 bottom angles, or the 2, not necessarily on the bottom, the 2 base angles, the ones that are attached to the parallels are the ones that are congruent. Okay? Okay, we're gonna skip this one. So just scratch out the 37. 35, so last one of this, says we're skipping 37. Find the measures of the numbered angle in the kite. Now, there was a theorem that we learned about kites. Do you remember?
A what?
Oh, 360.
360.
Something about
But as you
360.
cut it-
Okay, so if you don't have any diagonals, right? If I had a kite that looked like this, then all four of them would add up to 360. There's something else we know about kites.
If they have the triangles, then it's like 180.
The triangle would be 180.
Ah.
What else do you know though? There was a theorem that it was like the diagonals of a kite are
Congruent.
not congruent.
Parallel.
Parallel again.
No, the other one. Not parallel,
Perpendicular.
perpendicular, right? So when you have a kite, these, just like a rhombus, right? These are all 90. So kites and rhombuses have perpendicular diagonals, okay? If that angle is 90, then look at this triangle.
90 plus 65.
90 plus 65
55.
plus the measure of angle 2. So this is 155,
Minus 180.
and that's going to equal 180. So take away the 155, and you get
25.
25 degrees. So 2 is 25,
I said that.
okay? Can you tell me what angle 3 would be?
65.
65 is going to be the same as this one. Okay, so angle 3 would be 65.
There's no angle 3.
I put in an angle 3. Angle 2 is 25. Angle 1 is 90.
Oh, she know how to choke that right.
Okay?
Why did you
Like,
do
like,
that?
Questions on any of that?
Woo.
Okay. A quadrilateral is a how many sided figure?
4.
Quadrilateral, 4-sided figure. Okay. So everything we're talking about here has 4 sides to it. But now we need to figure out what is making it specific to the shape that it is. So what makes something a parallelogram? It's a quadrilateral, right? Falls under this. It doesn't have to have 4 congruent sides.
Okay,
Four
no,
Or
sides.
just congruent.
just-
No,
just
it's
four
a different,
Perpendicular.
no, the other one,
Parallelogram.
parallel, right? Opposite sides
Parallelogram sides.
are parallel. Okay, so a parallelogram is going to have opposite sides that are parallel. So something like this. This is your most generic parallelogram. Okay. Tell me what we know about any old parallelogram.
They go like this.
Opposite sides are parallel.
Yes.
What about angles? What do you know about the angles of a parallelogram?
They're the same.
Which ones?
Congruent. Opposite side.
Opposites. So opposite angles are congruent, right? So those will be congruent and these will be congruent. What do you know about the sides of a parallelogram?
They're equal.
Which ones?
On bottom.
Top and bottom. So opposites are congruent, right? Excuse me. So opposite angles are congruent and opposite sides are congruent. What about consecutive angles? Angles next to each other. 180. So this will be 180. This will be 180. Okay? That information is true for everything on this side. Right? All of these, the whole left side, have all of that information with it. Okay? So a rectangle, a rhombus, and a square has opposite angles congruent, opposite sides congruent, and consecutive angles that add up to 180. Okay?
So
Okay.
they all look like that.
They don't have to look just like that, but they have to have those features. Opposite sides congruent, opposite angles congruent, consecutive angles supplementary. So then go to the more specific. What makes something a rectangle? It's a parallelogram with 4 what kind of angles?
Sides.
Congruent. What more specifically?
Perpendicular.
They're right
Right.
angles, right? They will be perpendicular to each other. So we know everything that we did up here is true. So we're not going to label that, but I want you to draw a rectangle and label what we know. So we know there's 4 right angles. What do we know about the diagonals?
They bisect each other.
They bisect each other. What else? They don't just bisect. They're also equal to each other, right? So that means in a rectangle, all 4 of these are the same. Okay, so you'll have 4 right angles. You'll have 4 congruent pieces in the middle there, which means you have all these isosceles triangles, right? Remember how we did the isosceles triangle on that last problem? That means that these 4 angles will all be the same because those are the same isosceles triangles, and these 4 angles will all be the same. Okay?
I had an itch in my foot. Sure, they're reading back there.
Stop hitting the gritty, Shirley.
Okay, so that's rectangles, right? What makes something a rhombus?
Bisectors. Bisector. I always forget I don't have my water, so I'm reaching for something like
Perpendicular
that.
bisector.
For what?
Bisector something.
Perpendicular.
What makes it a, well, there is a bisector of the angles, but we're like, before we talk about the features of it, what is the definition of a rhombus? What makes something a rhombus?
No, sides.
That's 4 congruent sides, right? So if you have 4 congruent sides, then you have a rhombus. So a rhombus might look like this, where all 4 of these are the same. And now this is what Luke was talking about. The diagonals are bisectors. So all 4 of these angles will be the same. And all 4 of these angles will be the same.
Excuse me, sir. No. Excuse me, sir. No.
He can't hear you when it's that loud.
What?
Turn your music off.
Your music is too loud.
Way too loud.
Why are you listening to this
So angles bisect, right? There's one more thing. What about the middle?
already?
They're 90. Okay, so the last thing is these will all be 90. That's a rhombus. Okay, so then a square is what?
With congruent sides.
Yes, all of this, right? These together make it a square. So these together make it a square. Okay, so you put a rectangle and a rhombus together, you get a square. I'm not gonna have you write that stuff down because we don't need to. Trapezoid. Okay. What does a trapezoid have?
What happened?
Congruent base angles.
That's an isosceles trapezoid. So we're not gonna go there quite yet.
Or quadrilateral angles.
It is a quadrilateral. It has 4 sides.
Congruent side?
Not congruent sides. One pair of sides is what in a trapezoid?
Equal.
Here, let me draw you a picture and see if you can get what I'm...
That's a trapezoid.
This is a trapezoid. What makes that a trapezoid? Why is that a trapezoid and this is not?
It's like longer than the other one.
And I didn't draw that well. This would not be a trapezoid.
What?
That one is a trapezoid.
Yeah, but it's just
Why? What does this one have that this one does not?
a right angle. Right angle
Left
bisector.
sides.
Parallel sides, right? A trapezoid has to have one pair, exactly one pair of parallel sides.
What's parallel?
Okay?
Oh,
Parallel. These are parallel. They'll never touch. Okay? So, be more specific. An isosceles trapezoid then
Has two.
not has 2, has one pair of parallel sides, but then it also has one pair of congruent sides. So this side will be the same as that side. Okay, so that's an isosceles trapezoid. That's more the one that you're going to see on the test. What do you know about this trapezoid?
Wait, Miss Rubin, what is the two semi-congruent?
This is congruent.
No, the other one.
That's parallel.
first
This
one.
is parallel.
Oh, parallel.
Okay, so if this is angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, What do you know of those angles? You know quite a few things, actually.
2 and 3.
What is congruent?
2 and 3.
2 and 3 are congruent.
1 and 4 are congruent.
1 and 4 are congruent. So the base angles are congruent, and then there's other things you know.
They equal 180.
What do?
3 and 4 and 1 and 2.
Right, these two will equal 180, and these two will equal 180. So base angles are congruent. The non-base angles that are consecutive are supplementary. Okay? Okay, last one, the kite. I would start with the diagonals. They're a lot easier to draw if you draw diagonals in first.
I love kites.
I'm glad you do.
I like kites too.
Okay, so this is a kite.
My kite looks weird.
These are the same.
I never had a kite.
Those are the same.
You never had a kite?
No.
What?
I had a kite.
I used to love doing.
Man, I went to McDonald's and got straws and made a kite.
I always
Yeah?
let mine loose. Just to go lower.
Like you link them together and you make them your crossbars.
Yeah,
What was your kite itself?
piece of paper.
It's creative.
Do you have a-
Okay,
mine was
what do you
plastic.
know about a kite?
It flies.
It flies. These ones don't.
Big one that look like dragons.
Angle bisectors.
There are some angle bisectors. These would be congruent angles, right? And these would be congruent angles, but the other ones are not. What about those middle angles?
90.
90. They are perpendicular. So these will all be 90. Okay. There's two more sets of angles that are equal. This angle right here is the same as this one over here. And then this bottom one, 1, 2, 3, 4, with 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That's all the shapes we've talked about. It's a lot of them. It's a lot of details, right?
What are the blends?
Wait, are we doing the second part? about
This is two pairs of consecutive sides
Let's go.
that are congruent
I have to go movie.
and no opposite sides congruent. Ooh, that is a terrible pen size. Let's try again.
Are we doing the second half of the page?
everything that lands in his lawn.
No. I mean, if you want to, we can.
No, it's okay.
I think we want to work.
Oh, we have to do this tomorrow.
How much points is this test tomorrow?
Probably
100.
Oh,
They're all 100.
Cadence is gonna have trouble.
You're going to have a piece of paper in front of you that you did a bunch of the work on that you're going to be able to use as a reference point.
Yes.
I'm actually so excited to read that.
How about this? If you print this out yourself tonight or at school or wherever, I'll even let you use what you just wrote there.
Oh my god, hopefully she comes down.
So, if you want to print that out, I'll let you use it.
Wait, what are the words for the square? Is it just?
It's all this. It's the same as rectangle and rhombus. So, parallelogram with 4
Do you want it?
congruent sides
Like, no problem.
and 4
Adobe scans taking forever.
right angles.
Let's get out.
So just put the picture into Notability and submit the Notability.
Wait, let's get out. This
What
one.
will I change?
Maybe print this out right now.
No, just wait.